6.5 years ago, I arrived in Australia with a backpack and a dream. I had absolutely no idea that that one decision would change my entire life. And on July 15, I officially became an Australian permanent resident.
Allô papa? Allô maman? Ça y est, j'ai ma résidence permanente. Je suis trop contente.
This isn't just a visa. It's 6.5 years of uncertainty, sacrifices, paperwork, growth, tears, and never giving up. Hi, I'm Manon, not Manu, and if you're an English speaker, chances are you will call me Eva, and it's part of my last name, so that's totally fine. On this page, you'll find conversation about entrepreneurship, business, mindsets, life lessons, mistakes, and I'll share the journey of building a business and lifestyle from scratch in Australia. Today, I am going to walk you through the 6.5 years that led me to having my PR and being an Australian permanent resident today. So let's go back 6.5 years ago. 6.5 years ago, I arrived in Australia, in Perth. And I was supposed to arrive in Sydney. I was supposed to meet a friend and spend New Year with her. That didn't happen, thankfully. So you know, I have been living and working in 5 other countries before Australia and traveling. So travel was a big part of myself. And Australia was supposed to be a 6-month trip, one more destination, so I could visit Australia, improve my English, and really think about what I wanted to do with my life. In this story, you will see how lucky I am, because there are things that happen that if they didn't happen that way, if they didn't happen in that timeline, I wouldn't be here today. So maybe 15 years ago, my dad lived here for a year in Australia. He did an LPX tour. And in all his travel through Australia, he has that one friend that is in Perth. If I was supposed to arrive in Sydney, I could have never stayed during COVID. So when I arrived in Perth, I stayed at my dad's friend's place. And he helped me and my friend finding a car, because we still had the plan to do our road trip. We had no idea that the border were going to close. We didn't have a big budget, and my dad's friend is really handy. So he was like, okay, we're gonna build the back of the car. The car was a Subaru, so we could put the back seats down and really build a bed. Okay, we built the bed and we were okay to go with that, even though we realized that the space between actually the bed and the roof of the car was really, really small, so we couldn't even bend our knee. But we were planning to go on an adventure. So worst case, we were going to buy a small tent and every now and then sleep in the tent. That timing really worked in our favor, because if I would have arrived maybe a week or 2 weeks earlier and I would have started to do the road trip, it would have been complicated. But just before leaving, they closed the border. My dad's friends had a friend that had an apartment in Perth, and the person that was living in an apartment went back to New Zealand, to her country, because of COVID. So the friend of my dad's friend happened to have an apartment available, a 1-bedroom apartment. At the beginning, it was supposed to be only me and my girlfriend staying in this apartment. But my friend, when she came from Sydney to Perth, she met the 3 French guys with who she did the road trip, and she asked me if they could stay with us. And of course, everyone was helping each other. Of course, I said yes. And the landlord of the apartment said yes as well. So we found ourselves living 5 people in a 1-bedroom apartment. So me and my girlfriend had the bed in the bedroom, and the 3 guys were sleeping on sofas in the living room. And we only had 1 toilet that was in the room. So imagine 5 people, 1 toilet. Every time someone wants to go to the toilet, they have to pass by the room. So that was complicated. And we also had no TV, no internet, and no job. From end of March to October. That was a long time. At that point, for me, because I didn't live in France for that long, I did left France in 2016. I was already traveling for 4 years So it was making no sense that I go back to France because I had no life there. I wouldn't even have been helped by the government because I wasn't in the system for that long. And my mom was living now in the countryside. Like, it was no point for me to go back to France. So I decided to stay. And we were still hoping that they will reopen the border and then we will go on our road trip. We were still thinking that will be what will happen. Well, every day was a challenge, but we found a lot of activities to do. So we were lucky to be in Perth because yes, they closed the border, but in Perth we could visit, and there is a lot of places to visit in Perth. There's a lot of parks, a lot of rivers, a lot of beaches. Everything we could, we visited. And we also spent every day at the park working out, reading books and trying to improve our English. Thankfully we did have computers, but we didn't have internet. So we could watch movies every now and then that we had on the hard drives, and we did a lot of photo shoots. Anyway, that was a really long and challenging period. But thankfully as well, we would exchange services with our landlord. In exchange for rent, we would look after his daughter, paint the house, do gardening, and that's how we survived so many months without a job, but also without paying a rent. So we're living very low key. After that, in October, I found a job finally. And at the time, I started looking at the schools. I really like the way they do the studies in Australia. In France, it will take longer, and also the way they teach you things are different. I found this course, event management, and I always wanted to work in events. That's why I traveled all those countries before, so I could have a lot of experience with cultures, people, and bring what I discover about other countries in events. In October, that's when we decided to all move out. We spent 7 months on other people's space, so we couldn't stand each other. In between October and April, I was just like trying to live somewhere, but it was always inconsistent. At some point I had to live in a hotel, then I lived at a friend's place, and the study started in February. And I remember I was looking at finding a place. I found a place, and it was a place with a single parent and a daughter, and I negotiated the rent, and I said I will look after the daughter 1 day a week. And then I was in class, and my friend told me, "Are you sure? Because we're like really busy. Do you really want to take on more responsibilities by looking after someone's daughter?" And I'm like, "Yeah, maybe you're right." And I am connecting on Gumtree, and I found this Leela studio in Scarborough. So by the beach, that was the area I was looking at, and it was posted like 1 minute ago. So I apply, and I was the first one applying. And I say to the landlord, "I can come by tonight, can visit the apartment, and I can give you the bond and everything." He said yes. I went there, told him that I really wanted this apartment. And he was like, "Okay, because you were the first one, I'll think about it." And a few hours after, he called me and he was like, "Okay, you can have the apartment." And I moved in. I was so happy because it's probably one of the only studio that is there, because it's not a 1-bedroom apartment. It's a studio. So basically it was a room with everything, but that's all I needed. What I needed was space for me to study, for me to work. And sometimes I was coming back from work at midnight, and I will do my assessment until 2 a.m. in the morning, and then go to class at 8 a.m. I could live on my own rhythm. So I finished my first year of event management. It was challenging. I was so proud. But I wasn't ready to go back to France. I didn't want to go back to France. So I looked up to a way to stay, because event management was on the short list for the skill. I could complete my course by doing something else that was completing my event management course. I knew that studying business would be very beneficial for me, because I wanted to create my own business. Then I wanted to bring all my skills together. So I found a course in business, and here I was for another year. I think maybe it's during that year that I opened the business. And on the side, I started working as an event organizer. So I started working as an event organizer. I was doing my second year of study and I was building my business. So it was full on. Before finishing my business course, I separate with my ex. And then I decide to go and see my family because I haven't seen them at that point in more than 3 years. So it's about time. Whilst I am in Europe, I lose one of my biggest clients. And when I come back to Australia, it's hard here because I feel really, really lonely. It's hard in my private life. It's hard in my business life. And it's hard in my health. It's hard everywhere. At that point, that's when I really burnt out, and it was really, really hard because it felt like all the pressure of those years just like maybe wore down, and suddenly I had like no energy left. Every day felt like it was a big gray block, and it was so hard to get back to work and like to find the rhythm I had before. And I couldn't. And that is a period that lasted for almost 2 years, where I struggled to find motivation and to understand what was happening to me. So I'm someone who loves thinking. I always think about why am I thinking that way? Why am I acting that way? And all those things. So I really took understanding myself very seriously. And through those years, I got to understand my feelings. I got to understand burnout. I got to understand depression. And I'm not someone who is depressed. That is not in my person. Like, I'm someone who is really uplifted. But I did experience that depression at that point. And I'm glad. Today, I'm glad I did. Because it makes me so much more empathic. And I did ask the universe to be more empathic because I couldn't understand why people sometimes were really down. I couldn't understand. So to experience it was good because now I know. Then after that came the anxiety. The anxiety as well was such a different feeling, and that is a feeling I had since I am in Australia, but I never understood what it was. It took me a while to understand anxiety, the feeling that comes with it, and how to manage it. So in those 2 years of experiencing those hard feelings and those constant uncertainty, I was on a postgraduate visa after my 2 years of studies. I was still for a part of it working as an event organizer, but then I stopped and I fully focused on working on my business. Those 2 years passed actually really fast. It felt like the days were really long, but the years went by really, really fast. And applied for my skill assessment. Went through the process of it all. After I applied for it all, I got invited. And the only thing I had to do was to wait and keep focusing on myself. So that's what I did. At that point, I was going much better. And I moved out in this beautiful apartment in January 2026. Moving in this apartment was a ball of fresh air. I loved my studio, but after 5 years, I felt trapped. I felt like I was ready to level up, to go into another level of my life. And I felt like this studio that was this sanctuary for me, that was my comfort zone, became a cage. And I didn't want to start resenting the thing that made me feel safe here in Australia, because that little studio, that's the place that made me feel at home. So I moved out, and since the first day I have been feeling incredibly more free. And since January I focused on moving it, settling in, and building myself. I started rebuilding my YouTube channel with my new direction, more aligned with the person I had become. And on July 15, I received the email that I have officially became an Australian permanent resident. Now life is lighter. It was worth it. And you know how they say, oh, the sweet 20s. For me, it wasn't the sweet 20s. If I had the opportunity to be 15 years old again, I wouldn't do it. Because every choices I made, I will make them again. So it will still lead me here. It will still lead me where I am today. And I am so glad I did it. But I don't want to do it again. Now I feel like I had to walk through this tunnel that was really, really dark and really, really cold. And now I came on the other side. So I don't want to walk through this tunnel again, but I'm glad I did. That was for the story. Now about the mentality that I had whilst going through all that, it was that I knew it was hard, but I wasn't willing to giving up. I had a clear direction of where I was going. So after the event management course, I knew that if I was taking that direction, it was to do that. So the most important for me at that time was to have a goal, was to have a purpose. My vision became clear every time, every step, every decision I chose. The path became clear. So I had to stay focused on where I wanted to go. And I had to really go through step by step. So the reason I'm sharing this journey with you, it's because if you are going through your residency, if you are going through anything that is challenging, keep going. Don't give up, because you will look back at yourself and you will be proud not to have stopped. Your effort pay. Your hard work will pay. So I think for the PR journey, that's enough. And in others video, I'll talk about the countries that I worked and live in, the feelings of anxiety, how I experience it myself. Maybe some people will recognize themselves. I will cover more of life experiences. If you've watched this video until now, thank you for being here. And also, you have my full support on everything you are believing you can do. If you believe in yourself, I guarantee you can succeed. Just look at me. If you want to see me again, don't forget to subscribe. See you soon.